Welcome into the Backroads Bill Podcast. I'm Ben, and last week we talked to Sean and Lauren for the second time. If you haven't seen that episode or you have no idea what I'm talking about, they are the two people who, from this area, went to the Yukon and were one of the few Canadians who actually raced in the Yukon 1000, ended up placing third over a grueling, basically, week of canoeing 18 hours a day straight. And today we are going to be continuing the canoe theme, but in a completely different direction. We're not talking about the grueling paces of a race. We are talking about just the love of outdoors, the love of canoeing, that simple trip that you want to take on a weekend or even a day when you want to go travel down the highway a little bit, take your canoe out and just go for a paddle. Because we have a couple of gentlemen from the Wilderness Canoe Association, Matthew Eberly, who is on the board of directors, and Robert James, who is a member of the association. They both came on to chat to us about what the association does, all the gatherings they put on, all the trips, the information that they give, as well as both of their love for the canoe, what their favorite places are to canoe in, their favorite routes, etc. So that's what's coming on this week. It's going to be a great episode, and all of that is on the way. But first, a word from today's sponsor, the North Bay Regional Health Center Foundation.
Dear North Bay, you've always been more than a place on the map. You're home to me. This is where I built a life with my husband, raised our kids, and taught in local schools for over 24 years. I'm proud to be part of this community. Earlier this year, my world shifted. After living with anxiety, depression, and PTSD for much of my life, I reached a point where I couldn't keep going alone. Walking into the emergency department at the North Bay Regional Health Center was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But what I found there changed everything. A nurse who made me feel safe, a crisis worker who truly listened. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. That care gave me hope, and it inspired me to give back by supporting local healthcare so that others in our community can access the same compassionate care I did. If my story resonates with you, I hope you'll consider supporting the NBRHC Foundation. Please visit nbrhcfoundation.ca or call 705-495-8125 to give. Because mental health is health. With gratitude, Tiffany Van Meer.
Today we are pleased to be joined by Matthew Eberly and Robert James. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Good morning.
And it is the Wilderness Canoe Association and the Canadian Canoe Routes, but they're joined at the hip. And I'm glad that Robert and Matthew are with us today because we're going to talk about these two resources that we have in the canoe culture community across Canada. And I think maybe let's turn over to Matthew. Tell us a little bit about the Wilderness Canoe Association.
Sure. I'll try to summarize the club's history because we've recently celebrated 50 years. The club was first organized in 1973 at Eberly, Ontario. So it is primarily a canoe club, but that's the basic structure, is that we are a canoe club. We don't own any fixed assets in that it's not like we own a fleet of canoes. We don't really have a fixed location either, but it's primarily centered in the Greater Toronto area. We just get together on the weekends. We go canoeing, and as a basic, that's the foundation. But we've managed to organize a bunch of other things at the same time. What to say other than, I guess, generally speaking, because the club's old and established and has a lot of very experienced members, the members themselves tend to be very experienced people. And I would say the basic activity that we like to do is we primarily go whitewater canoeing. We also do flat water tripping, but most of the people who are active in the club are sufficiently experienced that they like to be challenged, and we do more challenging things. So, of course, everyone goes to Algonquin Park at some point in their life, but they don't really need to be in a club to do that. Most people already know someone who can go on a canoe trip to Algonquin. So the reason there's a club is because we do more challenging things.
Well, that's good to Ben. You know what? That's like me. I'm old and experienced, and that's a good thing. Robert, then you're a member. Tell us about the benefits of being part of this club and why you joined.
I joined the WCA. It's probably been about 6 years or so right now, and what I really enjoy about the club and the reason I joined is because I've been doing a lot of paddling all my life and doing various things. I'm paddling mainly flat water canoes all through Algonquin and La Vérendrye in Quebec and Temagami and all kinds of places. But often, sometimes I'll get an idea for a trip. I want to go somewhere. It may be a little bit challenging to go on my own. So I'm looking for people to go with. My wife is used to love canoeing and paddling and camping and stuff. She's now at a point in her life where she doesn't do that anymore. She's not comfortable sleeping on the ground. So I'm looking for other people to join and come out with me. So this is absolutely a fantastic way to meet people that are involved in the outdoors, that share a passion for the outdoors, that are willing and able, and they may or may not necessarily have the skills, but as long as you have the right sort of mentality, the right inclination, skills can be taught.
Well, I'm glad you said, Robert, about I'm not going to say in the same boat, Ben. I'm going to say in the same canoe because I'm not 23 anymore, and sometimes you have to try to find people to go with. So that's one of the benefits of being part of the WCA. And so, Matthew, tell us about some of the benefits, and somewhere in there you can talk about the insurance because I think that's important too. There's a lot of other benefits, but maybe let's go down that. Let's start paddling into that area, Ben.
Well, sure. I guess the fundamental answer to that question is the reality that if you join the club, you're joining a community, and a community of people who have already been on many trips. That's the foundation of it. What the club actually does is we organize resources for paddlers. The websites, obviously, we'll talk about a bit later, but one thing we've done is we have a map library, for example. So sometimes as paddlers age, they decide that they no longer need the resources that they accumulated to do that one trip of a lifetime that they did when they were younger. And so they've made donations, and we have a library full of marked up topographic maps for remote areas in Canada, for example, and lots of information about specific rivers. These are attractive destinations, for anyone who wants to go see, the true wilderness that Canada has to offer, especially in the north, but anywhere really. That's just an example. We also, so we've been publishing a magazine for 50 years. We have published a quarterly magazine. It's called Nostoggin. It's had several names, but anyway, it's been published continuously since 1974, and so it almost has 200 issues. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty confident that a solid majority of the people who buy a membership every year are doing it so they can get a copy of the magazine, because the magazine is really good, actually. And then, the foundation of any canoe club is outings. So our website, wildernesscanoe.ca, is set up in a way that allows anyone who wants to organize an outing to post their information about where they'd like to go, under what circumstances, and then that's distributed to all of the members, and people can sign up, get together, and then go out and do things together. Realistically, people have gone on trips all over the world. I mean, just because I have had the opportunity to look through the old issues of the magazine, I can tell you that groups have gone to the Galapagos Islands, for example. They've also gone to Siberia, other areas in Europe and South Africa, and then all over North America, really everywhere.
I've probably got a couple of trips that I should donate, and I was just thinking about back in the day when Bill Mason was alive, and he first, as I did, canoed Lake Superior from, Wawa to Hattie Cove at Puckasaw National Park. So things like that. And sometimes I'd look at those maps and look at the anecdotes that you scribble on the back or the front and those kinds of things. Because, and further to that, forever and a day, if you wondered about a canoe route, you'd go onto the Canadian canoe routes and go to the forums where people, share all kinds of tips. And I'm sure by example, Robert, you've got a story there, and it might be about a Northern Ontario river. It doesn't have to be, but something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm actually in the process of planning a trip on the Hood River in Nunavut. In fact, I'm leaving on Friday in 2 days. And I pulled a lot of information off of CCR. George Drouch, I had paddled there. I think he was going through that area about 4 times, and it left a lot of really good, copious notes that you can find it on the MyCCR link. And I've taken that information, I've compiled that onto all my topo maps. It's actually a really fantastic resource of for what to see and do, where to go, what we're likely to encounter. Give us a bit of a heads up for some of the rapids that we're going to be coming across.
Yeah, one of my examples, most recent, I still want to see the Artery Lake pictographs, which are in the far corner of northwestern Ontario, actually bordering Manitoba. And so I have been going on to the forum, but that's something still that I want to do because there's a destination involved. And, the forum provides so much information. And Matthew, I know it's linked at the WCA website. Who looks after all that? And talk about the volunteer ethic, because I don't think there's any employees anywhere in this whole business of wilderness canoeing.
So the Wilderness Canoe Association is actually organized as a charity. Like, we have tax exempt status as a charity. So, but the website, myccr.com, which is myccr.com, it's known as My Canadian Canoe Routes, and it's actually a for-profit corporation owned 100% by the Wilderness Canoe Association. But anyway, to answer your question, like everyone who's operating the websites is a volunteer. Everyone in the Wilderness Canoe Association is a volunteer. We're just, like I said, a community. We make contributions according to our interests, that sort of thing. Sorry, I forgot what you wanted to know.
Yeah, no, the link is My Canadian Canoe Routes. That link is there, and again, no, the question was, and I think you answered it very well about the volunteers and how you maintain that, because it's been in existence since 1973.
MyCCR.com was started by Richard Munn in 1995. It was originally called Ontario Canoe Routes, and I can claim to remember what the internet was like. I can claim to remember what the internet was like in 1996. But if anyone else does, the internet was a lot simpler, very, very basic, and substantially less commercial. So anyway, that website didn't have forums at the time. It became Canadian Canoe Routes in 1998. It was still run exclusively by Richard Munn until 2006, and then then he basically decided that he couldn't do it anymore because it was being operated all by himself. So he sold it to the Wilderness Canoe Association, essentially on value grounds. The Wilderness Canoe Association has a similar, values that we've hopefully expressed, that we like to share what we're doing, and we took over the website primarily as a way of continuing to maintain the information that was on it in order to continue to share it with anyone who is interested, really. So I'm the primary administrator at myccr.com. There's a board because it's a for-profit corporation. There's a few other people involved, but realistically, I do all the real work, which is not very much in reality, because most of what I'm doing is just keeping it on the internet. As in terms of contributions, like the actual content, the forums are realistically almost 25 years old, and there are hundreds of people who read the forums every single day, and at least dozens that write on it every single day. There's 100,000, I don't know, I think it's something like 350,000 posts, 1,000 routes, and 10,000 people registered in the forums. And really, it is a community. There definitely are people who are writing something every single day, just sharing their experiences, talking about the trips they went on, and teaching each other things about how to do it well.
Yeah, no, I really like the minutia of details that you might. They're little gems of information that people talk about in their exploits and their canoe trips. Robert, what about, is the insurance part important to you as a member?
No. in a word, when you look on the website, you look at the outings insurance there, and frankly, that's a little bit more for the club and the organizers and the directors of the canoe club. Basically, when you're on a trip, sometimes this stuff happens. Trees fall sometimes on people or on canoes. Accidents can happen. People who are the people who are on the trip understand the risks and generally and accept them. The people's loved ones, the families, other people don't always understand in the same spirit. So when bad stuff can happen, they might be inclined to sue. The outings insurance is designed to sort of protect liability for the club.
Okay, directors and liability insurance. Okay.
Yeah, it protects the outing organizer, protects the directors of the club. It basically provides an assurance that if you're going to organize a trip through the club, there is some protection there. You screw up. I mean, we all do to the best of our ability and our knowledge, and we all have varying amounts of training. We do the best we can, but we're volunteers. We're amateurs. Stuff can happen, and this protects you so that if something does happen, you're not going to be liable.
As I was going through the website and everything, one of the things that I thought was interesting was you have this paddler rights section in there, which I thought was really kind of interesting because there's a couple of things on here, like court rulings and stuff like that, and a lot of jargon that I don't quite understand because there's a lot of legality and stuff, language in there. So maybe, I don't know, Matthew, if you can talk a little bit about like why is this stuff important? Now, the one I'm looking at is specifically the definition of navigability.
Navigable waters.
Navigable waters.
So maybe talk us a little bit about why it's something that you guys are obviously concerned about and some of the results of what the Ontario courts have ruled.
Okay, well, hopefully I can remember it very well. Well, of course, I don't remember the names of any of them, but there have been several significant lawsuits and court settlements. Anyway, at the federal level, there's legislation called the Navigable Waters Act. What it amounts to is, realistically, it's fairly straightforward, is if you can put a floating vessel onto a body of water and move and go somewhere, then it's a navigable water. I'm probably oversimplifying it. I guess, but if it obviously applies most obviously to rivers, in that if you can put your boat in the water at one end of a river, travel down it, and exit at another point. That's the definition of a navigable water. And according to Canadian law, the river itself cannot be owned. So, privately, someone can own the land and the riverbank, but the river itself is free. It has the same status as Crown land in that it's freely accessible to any Canadian citizen. Anyone can travel on any navigable water. Looking back at how North America was explored by canoe, that's pretty substantial. Obviously, there was the foundation of the fur trade, for example. But the point is that, I hope that explains the definition. The reason it's important is the one case I can remember the best is around the end of the 1980s, there was a lawsuit involving the Wilderness Canoe Association and the Ontario Recreational Canoe and Kayak Association, which used to be called Canoe Ontario. And it involved a dam on the Credit River, which is near where I live here in Georgetown. Essentially, the landowner owned both banks of the river and a dam that went across the river. and people were portaging around the dam by going onto the private property, walking around the dam, and then re-entering the river. So there was a lawsuit because the private landowner really wanted to be able to prevent people from doing that. It was, anyway, I'm not sure how to explain it, but essentially the paddlers lost. It was proven that it was considered trespassing.
Yeah, and we have a good example in the North Bay area from the Restore the Link, the Lavaz portages going from Trout Lake to Lake Nipissing. That's been a huge, they've tried to restore the original portages so people could go there through the Navigable Waters Act, and it's been an ongoing, and they've purchased property and things like that. Another one, and I don't know about the lawsuits, but on the Missinaibi River at Thunderhouse Falls, a number of people perished over time, and I'm not involved. I don't know about the WCA and things, but eventually in time, when you approach there today, there's a huge billboard in the middle of nowhere saying you got to get off here because, so there's a lot of liability with regards to risk management. And when people post things on forum, then it becomes public information, and who's kind of responsible for that. And I think that's probably one of the roles and responsibilities of WCA is to make sure the information is forthright and detailed, and because in some cases there are no, it's not that like Hap Wilson hasn't or Adam Schultz hasn't written a book about every detailed portage as you go along. We're talking about the thousands and thousands of rivers and lakes in Canada that are unknown and that people post on the forums, so people can safely go down these rivers. But maybe Robert, you can speak to that, how important that is.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital. When you're paddling a river for the first time, you have absolutely no idea what you're going to be coming across. There's times when we've paddled and all of a sudden there's a rapid there. Oops, didn't realize that. There's a lot of circumstances where, for example, at certain times of the year, early spring usually, there's a lot of log jams, a lot of logs that come down through the winter or through bad winds and storms. And they create sweepers where the tree across the water and it blocks the canoe route. It blocks the canoe route, or forces the canoe to either stopping and then get swept underneath the tree that's there, which is actually one of the most dangerous things you can come across in a canoe. Because if you go under the tree, then of course, the canoe will likely flip, and then you're in the water and you go underneath the tree and you get it caught in the branches and drown. It's probably one of the most dangerous things there. One of the things that we find in the MyCCR is descriptions of where this is likely to happen. Instances that people are reporting, okay, there's trees down in this section, be cautious, advise, stop early and scout. There's if you don't know that the hazard's there, then you're a lot less likely to be in a position to do anything about it unless you have a lot of experience and can, handle the situations more technically. But it's absolutely, the MyCCR is an absolutely vital resource. We used it a lot when I was paddling last summer in Wabakimi in Northern Ontario. It's a spectacular park. If you guys ever get a chance to go up there, it's beautiful country. We were referencing it 2 years ago when we did the Broken Skull, and when the maps and the MyCCR stuff all indicated that there was a fall in a certain location, and they described the run up to the falls. At extremely high water levels, the route changed, and we ended up actually going over the falls, which was led to a really interesting story and experience. And if you read Nastagan, you can go see a lot more of the details.
North Bay's turning 100, and what a time to be here. From the buzz of the Heritage Parade to sunset concerts at the waterfront, the city is alive with celebration. And you know who's right in the middle of it all? Homewood Suites by Hilton North Bay. We're proud to be a part of this milestone moment. Whether you're coming home from a family reunion, planning a gathering with friends, or just simply making the most of everything the Centennial has to offer, our doors are open. Stay in a spacious suite that feels like home, with a full kitchen to cook in, room to relax, and a space to unwind after a full day of fun. Are you hosting something bigger? Our event spaces and amazing local partners like the Grand and Stock Transportation make it easy to bring people together. Best of all, they're just steps from the action. The fireworks, the food trucks, the music, the laughter, it's all right here. Celebrate 100 years of North Bay with us. Use code Centennial to save on your stay anytime this year. Be at home with Homewood Suites by Hilton North Bay. Join the party today at 495 Oak Street West or give us a call at 705-495-3000.
It's almost that time of year. Early mornings at the rink, fresh notebooks and backpacks, and a community gearing up for another great season of varsity sports. At Source for Sports North Bay, we're proud to be part of it all. Whether it's finding your kid's first pair of skates, gearing up for tryouts, or outfitting your team for the season ahead, we've got you covered. Because here, we're not just a sports store, we're neighbors, coaches, teammates, and fans. And we're proud to cheer you on every shift, step, and stride of the way. Visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street and let us help you along your way.
Speaking of Wabakimi, I used it twice because one of the canoe trips I went through Cliff Lake on the east side. I mean, it's a coalition of many parks that Bruce Heyer, and I've done a Backroads Bill interview and story about Bruce Heyer. Really, if you look at an Ontario road map, it's other than Polar Bear Provincial Park, it's the largest green space. And so, yeah, I used it on the east side for Cliff Lake, then that collection of pictographs, and then during COVID, it was the Wendell Beckwith cabin and went through that route as well. And so that was the only information there was because I had to do the story on the hermit of I think it's called White Lauder Lake, White something Lake. Anyway, that's where Wendell Beckwith is. And so, yeah, I mean, it's invaluable, that resource, if you're, looking at Canadian canoe routes. Because, Matthew, you said, I think something like 350,000 posts, 10,000 registered participants. I know there's more than 500 members in the club, but and we've talked a lot about the benefits. But I actually want to turn the conversation, Ben, to both of them about how did you start, Matthew, in paddling, and do you have a favorite route in Northern Ontario? And it'll be the same question for Robert. But Matthew, take it away.
Well, I was in Scouts Canada. That probably explains a lot. But the real story goes that my father had a brother-in-law named Bob who introduced my father and all of his friends to the North Channel of the French River at the end of the 1960s. And they went fishing the opening week of walleye season. So the same week every single year for like 25 straight springs. And they went to the North Channel of the French River. So there's a picture of me as a 3-year-old standing on the beach next to the river, and I went there as a small child, and then when I was a little bit older, I went fishing with my dad and his friends too. Anyway, the story is that one year my father, I guess, had extra vacation and could leave work early, so we went before the trip started. We camped at the base of the Cedar Rapids on the North Channel of the French River. My father wasn't really into camping so much, but we set up a tent there and stayed a few days before the rest of the group showed up. And basically the experience for me was, well, here we are at the bottom of this rapid. How come we're not going any farther upstream? Like, what's over there? Why didn't we go up that? And then later on in life, I'd heard about the trip, the 18-mile island loop on the French River. And so when I was, finished my formal education and had more free time, once I owned a canoe of my own, then I organized a group and I went and did that trip. And I did it twice. So that's just my personal affection for the French River, which is very beautiful, by the way. Anyone who has been there will know that. The Middle River is in a different way, and the Delta area is also very beautiful.
Yeah, we've had Mitch Azaria on the Backroads Bill podcast talking about the TVO documentary on the French River, and they're just about to start their next one on the Slate Islands on Lake Superior, and I've been helping them a bit with that. But Robert, tell us about how you started in your favorite routes, perhaps in Northern Ontario. You've already mentioned Mount Wabakimi. See, you said Wabakimi, I got excited because, in the canoe culture community, Ben, you get excited when people have gone someplace that you've been and you share certain things, or what did you see this? Did you see that? And so anyway, I digress. But Robert, take it away.
No, I love it. It's really great to see the passion. In fact, that's one of the things that attracts me to the canoeing, and particularly right now to the WCA community. It's the passion of the people, and it's fantastic. Whenever we get a few people together, we start swapping stories, and we can go on for days. I first started canoeing, I guess, when I was like a wee lad, and my parents used to go camping, mainly pretty normal camping in the provincial parks and the like. And we would rent a canoe from time to time. So I learned some basic paddling skills then. As I got older, I switched more into hiking, and I was hiking all over the world. As my knees started to degrade a little bit, didn't want to be carrying 80-pound packs anymore. Canoeing became a whole lot more accessible. My passion isn't so much for canoeing or hiking or doing anything in particular. Passion's for the outdoors, just to be outdoors, see the beauty of the world that's around us, find ways to get a little bit off the beaten path, be places that a lot of other people haven't seen, and place that you can go and appreciate it all by yourself, or was just, a select group of passionate people. And having done a lot of flat water paddling in the past, if you just have flat water skills, you're kind of limited by the rivers that you can paddle and the lakes that you can travel, because there will be times when you're coming across rapids, and you've either got a portage, and sometimes a very extensive portaging, or if you have some little bit of whitewater skills, then you can keep on going, and that just opens up so many more rivers that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So I started. I was invited to come along on a WCA trip. We paddled the Coulanges River just north of Ottawa there. And some people showed me some tips and tricks and got me down the river. Now, Coulanges is a relatively easy whitewater river, although there is some class 2 and a lot of class 2, some class 3. They're able to get me through it. We didn't capsize, which is kind of fun and interesting. But that gave me the bug to keep on going. And since then, I've been paddling more and more rivers. A lot of whitewater. So the Coulanges is one. I've paddled a lot through Ontario, Northern Ontario in particular. Wabakimi is a favorite of mine right now. I've paddled a lot in some of the rivers in the Yukon. Northwest Territories. This summer, well, actually, I mentioned I'm leaving in a couple of days for the Hood River, which flows into Bathurst Inlet on the Arctic Ocean. Famously, this is where the Franklin expedition came ashore when they're looking for the Northwest Passage. Minor anecdote: the Hood River was actually named after one of Franklin's lieutenants. Lieutenant Hood, who was, they were on that trip, they were starving, and one of the porters and guides on the trip got mad at him, and they had a bit of a fight, and he killed and ate Lieutenant Hood.
Wow.
I didn't know that story.
And as a result, he's gone down in history now. So,
well, Adam Schultz, he has been on, and of course he's now up to his new book's coming out this September, and his first book was Alone Against the North, and of course on the Again River in northwestern Ontario. And so there's always stories about all these rivers and the early people, whether they were surveyors or traders, First Nations peoples and the like. And I'm glad you mentioned the knees, because just so you know, I have 2 Swift carbon fiber boats, a solo boat, pack boat, and a 17-2 tandem. And so, I'm still able to carry on and paddle. Now, you could say about whitewater and things, but they are very tough. I mean, but again, as we age, the gear, of course, the phenomenal nature of technology and what they've done with the gear to lighten the load, so to speak, allows us to do those kinds of things. And so all the more reason to tap into these kind of resources, Ben, that are out there that people may or may not know about. In the canoe community, it's tried and true. And any of those 10,000 people and beyond exponentially just continues to grow, because that's where the definitive information is, because it's nowhere else.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about safety. Of course, we just talked to Sean and Lauren, which this episode will come out after that one does, but they've already done at this point, the
Yukon Quest, but now they're doing the Yukon 1000.
The Yukon 1000, and obviously we talked a lot about safety, and that's different because now you're in the middle of nowhere. You're far away from all civilization. You don't really have contact with people. There's a lot to plan. But when you're doing some of these routes, right, you're still kind of in the middle of nowhere. You're still kind of not around people. So maybe we'll start with you, Robert. What are some of the safety gear and tips that you would suggest people who are going on maybe a little bit of even a short trip, or maybe a bit of a longer one?
There's 2 aspects of that really that I think are important. The biggest piece of safety equipment, and this is something that I'd strongly recommend you do not leave without, is your brain. Knowledge and training. Understand what you're likely to encounter. Get yourself the training and knowledge that you can get out of most situations. There's some fantastic rescue courses that are being offered. People like Boreal, for example, they do an amazing course, a little bit of whitewater rescue, but also how to not so much navigating the rapids, but if your canoe flips, what you do to get out, how to escape from these kind of situations. So the best way of doing that, you can take rescue courses and stuff. Best way is just to talk to people, meet people, learn from them. When we were on the Broken Skull, and we had our incident when we swept over the falls, we were able to rescue all of the people. There were 10 of us. We were able to rescue the canoes. We rescued all our gear. We spent a day doing repairs to 3 canoes. And the fact that we're able to do that, with all of us working together and cooperating, the most important aspect, we can talk about gear and stuff and things that you can bring, but the most important part is attitude, to be able to persevere, work together. And if you can find a crew that works together well, that's amazing. But having the knowledge to be able to do it. But getting back to your question, the gear wise, I use a Garmin InReach device, which is it's an InReach Mini. It's about this big. What it does is it's basically a satellite communication device. It's got an SOS button on it. So if in absolute emergencies, you can push that SOS, and that will activate search and rescue. And there's some limited text communication based. So you can contact the search and rescue crew, tell them what's going on, and arrange evacuation if absolutely necessary. The most important thing it does for me, though, it allows the capability of sending messages. So at the end of every day when I come into camp, I'll send a preset message saying, I'm okay, this is where I am. And I'll send that to the wife, for example, and all of our sort of emergency contacts. And that just gives them a lot of, it's kind of a sanity check. They know where we are. They know that we're okay. And as a result, they allow us to go away and do crazy, stupid things, and not worry that we're in trouble.
Yeah, the inReach, Garmin inReach and the like came into play in the most recent storm in Algonquin Park, where they had to extricate some people in the middle of Algonquin Park more recently. And that's kind of, and I always wonder, of course, it wasn't that long ago, as Matthew just referenced, about 1995, 1996, and the evolution of the internet. We had to file trip plans with our loved ones on paper or tell them we'll be back in 12 days, and this is where we're starting and stopping. But Matthew, tell us about some of the gear that I think are essential to think about when you go on trips.
Well, I guess I just want to expand a little bit on what Robert said. I think the point of what he was explaining was that, you can rely on some digital device as a last resort. But the point is that once you get away from a road or whatever access point you use to access the wilderness, to a substantial degree, you're on your own. Regardless of the size of the group, you have to do, whatever it is you're trying to achieve, you're going to have to work together and do it yourselves, because the expectation is, of course, that there won't be any outside help. The digital devices only exist in the worst case scenario where you might have to ask for someone to come and find you. But regardless of the situation, the rest of the time you're on your own. So it's all about self-sufficiency. I'm not really sure about one piece of equipment in particular, but I guess the most obvious thing to point out is that what you ought to have is a sturdy canoe, because that is your basic form of transportation. And there are, I imagine there are thousands of canoe models in the market. There are lots of canoes you could buy, but it would make sense to buy one that's suitable for the application and the kind of trip that you're doing. I guess, given the audience, I'm relatively young and strong, so in the world of whitewater, we all prefer Royal X, which is just a particular type of plastic. But the point is that we actually carry heavy canoes, and they're heavy because they're durable. They can handle the abuse. On a wilderness river in particular, they do absorb a lot of abuse. It's very common to be running into rocks at full speed. So, I'm just pointing out. So, I guess since Robert suggested that everyone bring a well-prepared brain, it pays to be fit as well. Be strong, have some endurance, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for the viewers and listeners, of course, we really urge, if you're going to do moving water, whitewater, we really urge you to go to wildernesscanoe.ca. That's Wilderness Canoe, all one word, .ca. Ben will be posting that link, and then the mycrr.com, mycrr.com.
It's CCR.
CCR. We'll have those links,
and I'm glad for
correcting me here and for my notes, and it's been a great pleasure to have you both onto the Backroads Bill Podcast. And happy canoeing.
Sure, thanks you very much. Thanks for having us.
Well, a big thank you to Matthew and Robert for hopping on with us. Of course, you can visit them at wildernesscanoe.ca. The link is also in the description to find out more info. Also, check out Canadian Canoe Routes at myccr.com as well. So you can get all of your information from those two websites. Both of the links are in the description. If you enjoyed this episode, you can find more episodes of the Backroads Bill Podcast on your favorite podcast player. We're on Apple, Spotify, etc. The video version is available on the North Bay Echo YouTube channel. And of course, with new episodes coming out every single Wednesday morning like clockwork. You can also check us out on northbayecho.ca, where you can find a slew of other different North Bay podcast-centric podcasts, such as North Bay with Love, Echo Essentials, and the Echo Sportscast. You can also check out our newsletter, Echo Essentials, which is a great way to keep up to date with what's going on in the city, as well, of course, as what's going on in the Echo Community Podcast Network. So that wraps things up for us here. Join us again next week for another Backroads adventure.